So I want you to picture a man sitting completely alone at a table. And in front of him, he lines up 3 empty shot glasses. She leaves the first one empty. Into the second glass, he drops a single bullet. And into the third, he drops 2 bullets. And then he starts speaking. He's actually naming the fallen soldiers he fought alongside, just counting down the names until he reaches the very last one. And that final name lands on the glass holding the 2 bullets. It's a 1 in 3 chance. He puts the gun to his head, and he pulls the trigger. Click. No bullet. He leaves his apartment to restock at a local liquor store, and 2 armed robbers just storm the place, weapons drawn. But Chapman does the exact opposite. He steps directly into their line of fire.
Which is wild.
It is. He's terrifyingly calm, and then he literally grabs the barrel of one of the robbers' guns, pulls it toward his own chest, and dares them to shoot him in the head or the chest instead. Chapman takes them both down effortlessly. I mean, it's brutal. It's efficient. But the real tragedy happens the moment the physical threat is neutralized, and his mind is instantly teleported right back to the battlefield. The flashbacks just hit him with crippling force.
He goes back to his apartment and just starts punching the concrete walls until his knuckles are raw and bleeding.
Ouch. So into this bleak, totally self-destructive existence walks his sister, Cindy. She shows up at his door, and the contrast is visually and emotionally jarring. He is violently hungover, his hands are destroyed, and she discovers he actually swapped out his PTSD medication for breath mints. Meanwhile, she is bursting with life. She's packing to fly back to Brazil to do charity work in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Rio. So when the inciting incident happens, when 2 Brazilian police officers, Catarina and Paulo, find Cindy brutally attacked and left in a coma on a beach in Rio, he mobilizes. He is on the very next flight to Rio de Janeiro.
Precisely.
And to understand this ecosystem, we have to talk about Detective Tiago Santo and his massive partner, Carlo Bororo. These 2 operate entirely outside their jurisdiction, basically treating the favelas like their personal hunting ground.
Yeah, and Catarina, the cop who initially found Cindy, she tries to confront Santo about his brutal, illegal methods.
Right.
Catarina represents the voice of institutional caution. She understands the fragile socio-political balance of the favelas. But Santo completely dismisses her. He accuses her of being dangerously soft, arguing that her bureaucratic caution is exactly what allowed rampant crime to almost kill an American tourist.
And right in the middle of his rant, a rock flies out of the crowd and smacks Santo hard in the back.
Oh man, the tension spikes from 0 to 100 in a second.
Totally. Both the police and the locals have their hands on their weapons. A bloodbath is seconds away. But Santo doesn't start shooting. Instead, he issues a challenge to the crowd. He literally demands a proxy fight. He says, "Your best fighter against mine."
He picks his partner, Bororo, against the neighborhood's best capoeira fighter.
And Bororo just dismantles the guy. He flips through the air and knocks the local champion out cold. Santo just laughs, looks at the stunned crowd, and declares that his unit will come back whenever they want.
He's marking his territory.
Exactly. To me, Santo isn't acting like a modern police detective. He operates exactly like a feudal warlord.
Chapman arrives in Brazil. He's met by the U.S. ambassador, Manny Ridley, and they go to the hospital. But the second Chapman sees Cindy pale and lifeless, it's like...
The past just completely floods in.
Right, visceral war memories, blood-stained sand, the deafening silence after gunfire. It's like this invisible tripwire.
That is a great way to put it, an invisible tripwire.
He brings a total war mentality straight into a civilian space, which really made me wonder, how quickly does that internal trauma become, an actual external danger?
Well, we see the answer to that almost immediately in the favela. It's a really pivotal scene.
Oh, the backfiring truck?
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. A loud bang echoes, just a truck backfiring. And Chapman instantly, completely on instinct, lunges for the holstered gun of Catarina, who is a local cop.
I mean, his brain just drops him back into a war zone. He isn't remembering a war, he's biologically fighting one right there.
And they head straight to the hospital. Cindy is lying there in a coma, and suddenly her monitors start blaring. Chapman realizes that just moments before they walked in, a woman disguised as a doctor had been in the room and deliberately unplugged Cindy's life support. And because the local law enforcement is clearly either incompetent or actively dirty, Chapman decides to bypass the system entirely. He launches his own investigation. He heads straight into the favelas and tracks down a street kid named Cuca, who he spotted earlier near the beach. Chapman notices Cuca is actually wearing Cindy's necklace.
And his trauma responses just take over?
Instantly. He attacks the kid, disarms him of a knife, and is fully prepared to do permanent damage when Katerina throws herself between them.
Thank God.
Yeah, she diffuses the situation, explaining that the necklace was a gift. Cindy had grown close to Kuka's family because his sister, Maria, had recently vanished without a trace. And then Kuka hands over a notebook Cindy left behind, but several pages have been violently ripped out. Those remaining pages lead Chapman to a local photographer Cindy was collaborating with. They meet covertly at a cafe, and the photographer drops the real bombshell.
That she wasn't just doing charity work.
Exactly. She was actively investigating the systematic disappearances of young, vulnerable girls working the streets. The photographer tells Chapman she got entirely too close to something massive, and he gives him a flash drive of photos provided by a local informant. And as the man walks back to his car boom, a massive car bomb detonates, incinerating him instantly. Because in the chaos of the explosion, Chapman spots a familiar face in the crowd, the fake doctor, the Asian woman who tried to finish off Cindy in the hospital.
And instead of running from the blast, Chapman sprints toward the assassin.
Of course he does. He ends up getting ambushed in an alley by gunmen in a black SUV. He only survives by grabbing a fallen security guard's weapon and laying down suppressive fire.
But during the firefight, he notices something highly specific about the attackers.
Yeah, they have distinct, intricate Japanese underworld tattoos. So he takes the flash drive back to Ambassador Ridley, who identifies a specific nightclub from the photos. Chapman goes to the club, corners the informant. A guy named Lema drags him into a bathroom and violently interrogates him until he chokes out an address.
It's intense.
It is. While Chapman is tracking down the address Lema gave him, Santo and his corrupt police unit orchestrate what they announce as a major drug raid in the favelas.
Yeah, and Santo literally kneels, mutters a prayer, and then orders his men to show absolutely no mercy.
They storm the neighborhood, but it's not a raid. It's a targeted massacre. They are systematically executing local traffickers.
And the true motive for the massacre is revealed almost immediately.
Meanwhile, Chapman infiltrates the address he squeezed out of Lima. He sneaks onto the grounds and watches from the shadows as young girls are unloaded from a van.
And among them is Maria, Kuka's missing sister.
Right. Chapman's cover is blown, and he ends up in this brutal close-quarters fight against 5 Yakuza enforcers simultaneously.
During the chaos, one of Santo's own uncorrupted officers spots a group of Yakuza men in sharp suits loading terrified children into a transport vehicle.
Oh,
Yeah. The honest officer raises his weapon to stop them, but Santo calmly walks up behind him, praises the young officer for his bravery, and executes him with a bullet to the back of the head.
Unbelievable.
Santo engineered the entire raid as a violent smokescreen just to facilitate the Yakuza's trafficking extraction.
It is just chillingly calculated.
But this is where the narrative threads finally intertwine. The local corruption and the international syndicate merge right in front of him.
Yeah, because Santo and his enforcer, Bororo, arrive at the villa with their guns drawn, demanding Chapman hand over the briefcase.
And Katerina pulls up moments later, which forces Santo to stay in character and play the role of the diligent, lawful detective.
Since the Yakuza had already moved the girls during the fight, Santo insists on taking the briefcase of documents into, quote-unquote, official police custody. And here's where the tension just peaks. It's the tell. Santo is trying to talk Chapman down, and he makes a seemingly innocent comment about handling the evidence. But Chapman's eyes lock onto him. Chapman realizes he never mentioned the informant Lima's name out loud to Santo, not once. The only way Santo could know about Lima is if he was directly communicating with the people who killed him.
And we, the audience, already know the gruesome reality of that connection, having watched Lima executed by a samurai sword wielded by Hiramoto, the Yakuza boss.
So Chapman doesn't argue. He plays along. He tells Katerina to get back to the hospital and guard Cindy. And as soon as they leave, Chapman silently stows away in the trunk of Santo's cruiser.
Smart.
Santo drives straight to the shipping port, where the Yakuza are funneling the kidnapped children into a massive warehouse for overseas transport. Chapman calls Ambassador Ridley from the trunk, lays out the entire conspiracy, and Ridley orders him to stand down and wait for backup. He says, "Don't act alone." Yeah, he slips out of the trunk and starts neutralizing guards in the shadows. But inevitably, the stealth fails, and he comes face to face with Santo. The firefight erupts. Chapman literally uses an industrial forklift to pin Santo's leg, crushing him.
Ouch.
But before he can finish it, Bororo, the massive enforcer, leaps into the fray, unleashing brutal capoeira kicks. And as if that isn't enough, Hiramoto, the Yakuza boss, casually steps out of the shadows, drawing a katana. Hiramoto slashes Chapman's arm to the bone. Santo manages to free himself and lunges with a hunting knife. But Chapman doesn't even try to dodge.
Nope.
He catches Santo's arm, turns the blade inward, and drives it straight into Baroa's leg, neutralizing the giant. He knocks Santo unconscious, rips the detective's heavy tactical chain right off his neck, and punches it directly into Santo's chest.
It's so intense.
So now, it's just the broken veteran and the Yakuza boss. Chapman grabs 2 discarded steel pipes to block the relentless sword strikes. He actually manages to catch the katana between the pipes, locking the blade in place. But Hiramoto smiles, triggers a mechanism, and slides a hidden secondary blade out of the hilt, plunging it directly into Chapman's stomach. Chapman unleashes a flurry of bone-crushing blows to Hiramoto's skull. He literally beats the crime lord to death with his bare hands.
It's savage.
Santo does something incredibly unexpected. He reaches into his pocket and tosses Chapman a single key.
Yeah.
It belongs to a locker containing the ledgers, the names of every corrupt judge, politician, and official tied to the trafficking ring. Chapman looks down at Santo and leaves a loaded gun by the dying detective's hand, letting Santo end it on his own terms rather than slowly bleeding to death or facing the wrath of the cartels.
Yeah.
The military police arrive, the shipping containers are opened, the kidnapped children, including Kuka's sister Maria, are finally freed, and Cindy survives her coma.
Ambassador Ridley visits Chapman and offers to cover every single dime of Cindy's medical expenses. He hands him a blank check.
But it comes with an enormous catch.
Always.
Ridley will only pay to keep Cindy alive if Chapman agrees to go to work for him. Chapman looks at his sister, realizes he has no other choice, accepts the deal, and walks away with his new identity.